More Bitcoin treasuries being publicly announced. We're also seeing more accumulation in the ETFs and some wild market cap predictions for the crypto space as a whole coming from none other than the current administration in the United States. We also have some traders though warning that there is a gap on the CME chart down at 92,000. So does Bitcoin go on to glory from here, or could there be some heavy selling before Bitcoin makes its big move to another all-time high? We're going to cover all that in this video and more, so stick around and let's get into the video. And more Bitcoin treasuries are joining the party. We have a post here from Bitcoin News saying that Canadian digital finance firm Mogo to allocate up to 50 million into Bitcoin. Mogo announces 50 million Bitcoin treasury authorization and strategic alignment with Bitcoin across the organization. So more and more treasuries are going to begin accumulating Bitcoin, and we'll be seeing probably a lot more of these throughout the remainder of this cycle. And a post here from Watcher Guru, just in, US Director of Digital Assets says, we want as much Bitcoin as we can possibly accumulate. And we have a quick clip here of Hines. He also explains one of the ways that the United States might allocate to its strategic Bitcoin reserves. Let's quickly give this a listen.
The time too, as we set up the strategic Bitcoin reserve, it's like, how much Bitcoin do you want? And I think that's a very silly question that journalists ask. We want as much Bitcoin as we can possibly accumulate. Now, obviously, we have to do that in these budget neutral ways, but I think that there's many creative ideas out there that we can act on.
And one of the great opportunities, I think, especially that solves two issues. One is helps the government accumulate Bitcoin and helps Bitcoin miners establish more hash rate in the US, is to partner with the US government using energy potentially as a way to generate Bitcoin for the strategic reserve.
No, I think that that's a phenomenal prospect that we should certainly be keen on acting on. As we flesh out these ideas amongst the interagency working group, which was established in the president's first digital asset CO, the president likes to say he has a lot of high IQ people in his cabinet, and I think he's certainly right about that. So we'll work with Commerce, we'll work with Treasury, Secretary Letnick, Secretary Bessent, to find these creative solutions. But I think that a public-private partnership between the miners could be a phenomenal way to accumulate Bitcoin for the reserve.
Well, we certainly look forward to being part of that.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your service.
So a great clip there from Merrick, posted by Watcher Guru. Hines staying consistent on his message that the United States government wishes to allocate as much Bitcoin as possible to its strategic reserve. And one of the ways they're looking at doing this is partnering with miners. So interesting prospect nonetheless, and I'm sure there'll be other ways that they come up with as well. And moving right along to Bitcoin Archive, we have Bitcoin and crypto market cap will probably go to 15 to 20 trillion once the Genuis stablecoin legislation passes, says Trump's digital asset director. So Hines is suggesting that once this legislation goes through, that the overall market cap of Bitcoin and crypto combined could reach as high as 15 to 20 trillion dollars over time. If I bring in coin market cap way up here, top left-hand side, we can see that the market cap of all crypto assets combined is sitting at 3.32 trillion. So Hines is suggesting that over time we could see a 4 to 6x on that market cap, which would be an absolute tsunami of liquidity. So it'll be interesting to see what comes of all of that. Maybe we're just not bullish enough. And on this chart here, we can see that M2 global liquidity continues to explode, currently hitting all-time highs. This is a post from Mr. Crypto, who was kind enough to share this chart, saying global money supply is exploding, Bitcoin will follow. And if we look at the line chart, we can see Bitcoin's price action in cyan, and we can see M2 global liquidity in green. And there is a pretty good correlation here. You can see M2 global liquidity moves up, and Bitcoin follows behind. But there is a bit of a lag. Bitcoin likes to trail behind M2 global liquidity by approximately 8 to 12 weeks. So if Bitcoin is going to be magnetic to M2 global liquidity, then this chart suggests that sometime in the very near future, Bitcoin is going to have some really great days for price action. And jumping over to Bitcoin counterflow to check in on the Bitcoin ETFs. And we can see that for the most part, accumulation is still happening with the ETFs. We do see one day of negative outflows of $350 million worth of Bitcoin. That happened on June 30th. But on July 1st, we saw 422 million worth of inflows. And on July 2nd, we saw 605 million worth of inflows as well. So still seeing some accumulation across the ETFs. And heading into the price action of Bitcoin on a daily time frame. And we can see Bitcoin is currently down 1.7%, at least at the time of making this video. And we can see that it's just coming in and testing that red 10 simple moving average there. Interestingly enough, about 4 days ago, we saw the red 10 simple get back through the 30 simple and back up above the yellow 21 exponential. And that does put those moving averages back into a bullish posturing, at least for the time being. So if Bitcoin can hold these levels here, then those moving averages will remain in that bullish posturing with the lower periods above the higher periods. In my past analysis, we've been looking at this obvious midterm downtrend that Bitcoin has been in ever since putting in its all-time high back here in May. And for me personally, I've been looking for candle body closures at least above this pivot point right here, and that is coming in at about 110,000. Getting some daily candle bodies to close above that pivot point is, technically speaking, undoing this midterm downtrend and would possibly be signaling to us that the bears are becoming exhausted and that the bulls are regaining control of this chart. I think even better, breaks above the all-time high. You know, if Bitcoin started closing above 112,000, daily candle bodies, some good volume down below, then things would be looking really good at that point, and Bitcoin would likely be moving back into price discovery and perhaps a melt to the upside. Now, something interesting on the CME chart I'll quickly point out. A lot of folks are arguing about this gap down here. You can see that there's potentially a gap in price action right here. Now, some are just simply arguing it is a gap, while others are saying maybe not. I mean, if you look at this wick on this candle right here, and you look at the wick on this one right here, this one is pretty close to call. So the way gap theory goes is that gap theory suggests that gaps get filled. So anybody that's looking at that as a gap might be thinking that over time, perhaps price action gets down there and fills that gap. So I suppose if bad news entered into the market, causing a catastrophic waterfall to the downside, well, then maybe we could look at this potential gap to be filled. Now, if that's the case, that gap would be filled at approximately 92,000. Interestingly enough, we see that the white 200 simple moving average as well as the 200 EMA are coming into confluence with that area too. So if for whatever reason Bitcoin started to sell off and that potential gap was to be filled, we do have some confluence with that gap as well as some major moving averages. And me personally, I wouldn't be bearish at that point in time. I would likely view that as an opportunity. But I will point out, if we look left, that some gaps are simply more obvious than others. Like right here, that is undeniably a gap in price action. If we look left even further, we can see right here, this was another gap in price action, as well as right here. Those are really big, obvious gaps. So it remains to be seen. You know, this one is a bit controversial. Some people think it is a gap, some people don't. But let's just say if that is a gap and was to fill, well, that would be suggesting about $92,000 to the downside, which is a long ways away from here. But we get the right kind of bad news in the market, maybe we see that happen. But thought I would put that on your radar. So as it sits right now, we do see that the bulls are trying to make an attempt of undoing this midterm downtrend, still looking for those candle body closures at least above this pivot here. Yep, we did get that wick, a little bit of a test of that area, but we have yet to see a candle body closure happen above that level. Even better, I'd feel even better about this if we see those closures above that all-time high. That does it for this one, ladies and gentlemen. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Do you think that is a gap on the CME chart? And if it is, do you think we're about to fill that? Or are you bullish and you think that Bitcoin's getting ready to move to much higher price levels? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Thanks so much for coming by and checking out this video. Looking forward to seeing the next one. And until I do, have yourself a powerful day.